Good evening, everyone. Today, I gave a talk on how to work on jealousy. Actually, uh, now this is a very good topic. I mean, in today's world, not even in today's world, but also in our day-to-day life, because we don't know what time or when we getting jealous. So I was thinking actually to talk about what kind of an advice that we can find from the Buddhist teachings. So first, let's take a look at a definition of what is being jealous actually. A resentment toward others because they possess something you think belongs to you. A resentment toward others because they possess something you think belongs to you. Now, this is something really about other people. Like, you think that someone else has something that you own actually. So that is being jealous. Now, when we talk about jealousy, we need to talk about what is being envious. Actually, we talked about what is being envious a couple weeks ago, because these two words are actually interchangeably used by many, uh, differently. I think there is a huge misunderstanding between jealousy and envy, because envy means it's also a resentment. Actually, I would explain to you what is being envious. Now, then you understand what is being jealous properly. A resentment toward others because of their possessions or success. Now, someone is actually resentful about someone else's success or whatever any good things about that person, but they don't think, such person doesn't think, such resentful person does not think that those things that they see in other people are things that they should have owed or own actually in their lives. But in jealousy, what instead of that we can see is that people think that whatever the things that they see in other people, they actually belong to them, because that's the problem. So it's something kind of a mentalization about other people's possessions, other people's things, kind of like trying to making them own in one's properties actually. So that's being jealous. But the envious does not do not necessarily assume those things should have been there. So that's the difference. Like, so they don't think that other people things are other people things are actually should be actually owned by them. They simply think that the other people have this thing and that thing, but they're simply being simply envious about their thing. So that's the basic difference between jealousy and envy. Now, according to the Buddha, what we can say is that Buddha says that including the bad virtues, or I would say these bad emotions like jealousy and envy, they come from three unwholesome roots, which you call akusala moola actually: lobha, dosa, moha. Now, lobha means greed, dosa means hatred, moha means ignorance or delusion. But when you clearly give a look about how they actually consist in their consistencies, you could easily find that moha, or which you call ignorance, is the base or the primary cause of all the other, like greed, hatred, and all the other subsequent bad emotions. So now, when we talk about jealousy and envy, we could clearly understand we getting jealous or we getting envious simply because we are ignorant about what's going on. So that's something we have to study now, which you call moha in Pali. Okay, ignorance. Now, what kind of things that we can see with ignorance? Now, I would suggest you to think about any situations or circumstances where you were jealous, where you will be jealous at some point if you don't manage yourself properly, to look at the fundamental nature of the reality of the circumstance and the self. Now we always have these two sides to deal with jealousy actually. Now if we think that we're getting jealous for something, then we really need to take a look at the fundamental nature of the reality of that particular thing or case or situation, scenario, story. And then you need to look at your self side, what kind of personalization you make towards that thing. That is what connects you to be jealous, right? So fundamental nature of reality and self. And as you know that it is always clear that we become jealous with an indirect understanding about this self to be autonomous permanent entity, right? Because we think self exists. That is why on the top of that we're going to be jealous. Self exists so that I want this to I want this to happen, right? So it is a kind of a it's kind of a illusionary thought in Buddhism, because Buddha says that this permanent separate self is an illusion, right? So then if the self is illusionary, or if the self is an illusion which is not permanent, then how we can put that as a ground for being jealous, right? So self is just an illusion in Buddhism. I mean, there is a conventional self that Buddha talks about, I mean, to work in our secular life. But when it comes to these emotions, bad emotions, Buddha asks us to think about, there is no permanent autonomous self exists in Buddhist understanding, so that you cannot bring that up for making whatever your jealous thoughts to be reasonable actually. So then Buddha says there is no permanent separate self on which a lot of people trying to justify their them being jealous actually. So that's something to think about. And also this is something that we need to think. When we think others are taking something we are we become envious, but we think others are more fortunate than we are. So now usually, as I told you at the beginning, jealousy simply means that you worry about someone else's success or whatever the things, because you think that you should have received the same thing. But when it comes to envy, you simply worries about other people's success, and you don't make a connection between their success and you, but you simply worries about it. Okay, now we can take a look at another side to work with jealousy, that is to think about jealousy on the basis of attachment. Now we know jealousy is an attachment, because we attach to the feeling of being jealous, right? Now what Buddha tells us is that, now what indirectly happens when we are attaching to the thought of being jealous is that we mistakenly see ourselves as separate from everything else that we attach. That's very important, because what we're going to do is that, let's say we are attaching to kind of an object. So what we do is that we're going to separate us from everything else, but from this attachee, which you call the object of attachment. So since we are going to separate all the other things from the particular thing that we're going to attach, then we actually create a lot of illusionary type of things actually with that. That's why Buddha asks us to separate two things when we think we're getting jealous: attachment and the attachee. For example, like if I think that I'm getting jealous because of something, so that me at that point, at the same time, the object of my attachment, that is that particular thing. So Buddha says what we usually do is we separate ourselves and that particular thing. That's the problem. Because once you separate, you kind of personalize you and that thing from everything else. So Buddha suggests us to unify these two. Don't separate. Now, when you don't separate, what will happen to you is that you kind of looking at the both side, and you are not attaching to anything. That means you are into non-attachment. That's what Buddha asks us to stay focused on. So non-attachment is something really interesting, because now this let's take a look at one of the nicest readings of this non-attachment. If we fully appreciate that nothing is really separate, that means we can't separate anything in its real entity, in its reality. To begin with, attachment becomes impossible. So usually what happens when somebody is attaching to something, that person separates oneself from that particular thing. Then that's the problem. Buddha asks us not to separate, but to unify the attachment and the attachee. Okay? So if in non-attachment, on the other hand, what happens is that there is a unity. There is unity because there is nothing to attach to. If you have unified with the whole universe, there is nothing outside of you. Right? So at this point you will understand who will attach to what, because since you do not separate you from the attachee, or which you mean the attachment and then the attachee, then there is non-attachment, and then you will not be jealous, because you're trying to understand the both rather separating those two. Okay, so that's something you can do actually. Way before we're going to talk about the some methods that we could use after it becomes a problem, after you being very jealous, right? Now, what are the basic and very interesting methods to deal with this particular bad emotion, which you call jealousy? Okay, there are two main techniques that we can use. One is being mindful, the other one being into metta, practicing metta, loving kindness. Okay, so what is mindfulness at this point? Now, mindfulness means the full awareness of which you call full body and mind awareness of the present moment, right? Which we usually do not focus actually all the time. So this shouldn't be just a sitting practice, right? Mindfulness practice is not merely a kind of a sitting practice. You may start this with a sitting practice, but the real practice comes when you are in normal life, right? When you talk, when you drive, when you do all the other your chores, right? So what happens is that when you get jealous, what happens? You can notice any bodily or sensational experiences and things that happen within you actually. Let's say if you are jealous, you can notice a bunch of differences, changes inside of you. For example, I would say you might have heavy breaths, you might you might have some I don't know, I mean there could be many bunch of things happening inside of you. Probably, I guess your pulse rate gets faster. You could see a lot of things happen inside of you, so you could notice them. So that observation is very important, because the moment that you understand something happens within you, then you are not you're going to actually respond to them, because you understand something different happens within you. And so that means you are into mindfulness. So you are actually fully aware about your body. At the same time, when you are jealous, you're kind of having different feelings about, resentment, anger, hatred, and so you can notice them too. So the moment you understand that you are having a hard time with your body, difficult time with your body and your feelings, then you can stop them happening. You can understand this is bad. I should not develop. I should not encourage, you know, this thing. And you, when you investigate further into those differences, then you understand that this is why I'm getting these bodily changes. This is why I'm getting changes in my feelings, right? So pay attention to the physical and emotional sensations in your body. That's very important. That's what I was talking to you. So, and at the same time, you acknowledge, recognize, and acknowledge, you know, these changes within you. Then you could probably have a kind of understanding that nobody is making you jealous. You making yourself jealous. I think like in our normal life, even we come up with these jealous thoughts. Actually, not the people that we are trying to be jealous at making us to be jealous. It is our, you know, poor understanding about those people. If we really see what it is, if we really trying to understand who they are, then we have a far more, you know, far less chance to, you know, for being jealous actually, when we take a look at such people or things. So as I told you, you know, in this first technique, you need to practice mindfulness all the time, right? Mindfulness means full body and mind awareness of the present moment, and that will help you to figure out what's going wrong actually. At the moment that you understand that something different going on within you, you can actually stop that happening. So that's a good response in the first place. Number 2 is loving kindness. Actually, now this is also something that most of the people have to think about. They think loving kindness simply means that you sit down and then to contemplate about bunch of, you know, statement like, may I be well, happy, peaceful. It's good. I mean, it's a good start. But metta at this point goes something beyond that actually. Now, for example, you think about another reason of why you're getting jealous, because you do not know who you are actually, because you're trying to see other people and then trying to understand who you are actually. If you know who you are, I mean, that thing is very important. Not being jealous actually, not being jealous at this point. Now, to understand who you are, to figure out who you are, metta helps you a lot. So how metta can help you a lot? Because if you extend loving kindness to you, you know, properly, then what happens? You feel secure. You don't get frightened. You don't get any feelings of betrayal, right? You don't feel any shame feeling. You don't feel like embarrassed, because you work towards you work actually betterment of your understanding, betterment of your body, your mind, your whole picture, right? The more you work on you, I mean, especially not being selfish, but trying to understand who you are really, you know, in that real understanding, that really helps you to actually have positive feelings about you actually from on your side. Because if you try to be confident, if you try to be loving towards you, if you try to be gentle towards you, that really helps you not being jealous, not getting jealous actually the moment you get to see other people, right? So metta is such a good practice. So as you practice, you get to understand this is such a very good practice, and then at that point you need to extend this to other people too, right? So you need to take time. Don't need to take a rush, because you need to take time, because first you need to work towards you, you know, in a good way, and then when you are satisfied that you are really extending loving kindness to you, and then you can start, you know, spreading loving kindness to other people. So mindfulness practice and loving kindness practice really help you to work with jealousy. Before that, as I told you, if you can understand that theory, not being non-attached, if you can understand this attachment and then the attachee, if you don't separate any of them, and then if you're trying to unify the both, and then that's the best thing, way before mindfulness practice and loving kindness practice. But loving kindness practice and mindfulness practice are very important too. But you could use these three things at the same time. So I think that you sort of like understood what jealousy and envy mean. At the same time, how you could understand this non-attachment, and then why jealousy, you know, from where jealousy come from. At the same time, you sort of understood how you can work with this jealousy with mindfulness and loving kindness practices at the same time, trying not to separate attachment and the attachee, or rather trying to unify the both. Okay, thank you. Have a good night.